As you can see, I'm just about inside this venue. There are upwards of maybe a dozen police officers effectively blocking anyone from entering the building. And indeed, if I were to leave, I wouldn't be allowed to re-enter. That's essentially the situation we're on. They're effectively trying to strangle the conference, if you like, by ensuring that the delegates that are effectively in here, when they leave, they won't simply be allowed to return. Now, the reason, as you've seen, the mayor has made that clear. He thinks there's concerns around public orders offences, also concerned about the people who are at this event. But frankly, the conference is still taking place. There are dozens of people behind me. There are people inside the hall. Speeches are continuing. And the organisers have suggested that tomorrow they will find another venue in Brussels to carry on this conference. Now, unsurprisingly, this has provoked quite a lot of reaction here, not least of all from some of the attendees. This is the National Conservatism Conference that's taken place in London last year. It's been attended in the past by people like Jaipur Mogg and Michael Gove. This year, Nigel Farage and Suella Braverman were here, and I spoke a little earlier to the former Home Secretary about what she had made about the police's actions today.
It's a real shame that the thought police, instructed by the Mayor of Brussels, saw fit to try and undermine and denigrate what is free speech and free debate. I remember the words of Mrs. Thatcher, and I'm going to misquote her, but the more ridiculous and far-fetched and extremist their attempts are to silence us, the more cheered on I am, because it just shows that they've lost the political argument.
It must be said, Suella Braverman made quite a punchy speech, actually, attacking the Prime Minister, suggesting the UK should leave the European Court of Human Rights. That's been entirely overshadowed by what's happened today. When the police initially turned up and there were suggestions that effectively they were going to ask people to leave this venue, who was on stage? Only Nigel Farage. And let's be frank about this, he was slightly lapping it up in the sense that he's been making an argument today about cancel culture, and he would argue this is cancel culture in action. Many feel, even supporters maybe of the mayor's actions today, may well argue this is all backfired. Let's have a listen to what Nigel Farage had to say to me a couple of hours ago.
What's happened here is now on the stage of where there is global media. We can see that legally held opinions from people who are going to win national elections is no longer acceptable here in Brussels, the home of globalism, because if you don't agree with ever closer union, you must be a bad dude.
Do you think that's because of what you stand for, Mr. Farage?
What, nation-state democracy? It could well be, yes.
So where do we go to next? As I say, lots of delegates are still in there listening to those speeches. I think the number of people here will clearly go down as the day goes on. The big question is what happens tomorrow. Victor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, an EU leader who comes to Brussels quite regularly, is due to address delegates tomorrow. As I say, the organisers are suggesting they will find another venue. This is, by the way, the third venue. The previous two had been cancelled under political pressure. So we'll have to wait and see what does happen tomorrow. Somewhat, at the moment, kind of literally somewhat of a stalemate.